Hey everyone, Dr. Frunke here with an awesome new knife consult for you on a knife from a new maker for this channel, HMC Knives. HMC stands for Hellion Machine Collective. HMC Knives is actually just one guy. His name is Jim Vandeveld. He is out of Erie, Pennsylvania, USA, and he is a CNC machinist by trade. He has taken his career and turned it into his hobby and is now making some awesome fixed and folding knives out of his shop there in Pennsylvania. This model is called the Transient, and it comes to me by way of my good friend Greg. He goes by @100ProofEdge on Instagram, and he is one of the nicest guys in the community. He really knows how to find a great knife for a great price, and he's been a very good friend to me. I've actually met him in real life, and so it's easy for me to call him a true friend. So thank you, Greg, for sending this along. I'm really excited to show this knife of yours off and give Jim a little bit more attention out there. So as you can see, your Transient will ship in this very nice packaging right here. This customized Now Pack case right here. Super solid. Really enjoy when a maker sends their knives in a customized case like that. It is not cheap to make that, and when you spend money on a knife like this, which is made of high-end materials, it's nice to see a high-end package like that. Right away, I'm impressed. And then you go ahead and you open this knife and you can just drink in the details. Absolutely beautiful from tip to tail with some very special details that we're going to get into here. So let us go ahead and get some vital signs on this HMC Transient right here. Up front, you have a 3.3-inch blade, which is a nice size. I have seen a lot of blades at 3 1/4 and a 3 1/2. This 3.3, 3.4-inch range is really kind of underutilized, I feel like, in the community, and it's a very nice size, so I'm happy to see this one is there. 7.6 inches of overall length. You've got about 4.3 inches of overall handle right here with an effective grip area at about 4.1. If you slide this up to the choil, maybe you're getting about 4.75 inches right there. It's got a unique sort of design, ergonomic design language right here. And some may like it, some may not. I think it works very well, and we'll show you how the grips work as we go through it. I'll bring out another couple of knives for a size comparison. Here is the Spyderco Para 3 right here, and here is the Paramilitary 2. So you can see the Transient slots right in between those two knives. A very nice EDC size carry. Not too big, not too small. I really like knives in this size category. I want to bring out another couple of knives for a good comparison. This is the BBM, which is a 3 1/4-inch blade. Here is the Peter Rosenti Nirvana 3.0. This is a 3 1/2-inch blade. As you can see, it really does slot right in between these two sizes, and I really enjoy that. Some people think that 3 1/4 is a little bit too small. This really kicks it up a notch and makes it very accessible for those with larger hands like me. So let's go ahead and break this knife down anatomically. Up front is this insane blade. Oh my goodness, take a look at that. Mike Norris Hornet's Nest Damascus. You can see the nests within the other designs. What I love about this blade is the way that it is finished. Jim has really beautifully mirror polished the blade and then achieved a perfectly contrasting etch. Let me bring this up very close so you can see the fine details there and how it just shimmers in the light. If I bring it away from the camera and just put it in direct sunlight, it almost looks like a mirror polished blade right there. But then obviously in another light, it shows the matte finish of the etched component. And it's really beautiful. I think he's done an amazing job. Just check out the patterns in that Hornet's Nest Damascus. Beautiful stuff. We see a lot of Chad Nichols Damascus out there, but Mike Norris makes some awesome stuff that needs to not be overlooked. Both sides of this blade are absolutely wicked. I love the pattern. It is just truly unique. What I'll say is Jim is very oriented towards the details. This knife, when he first polished and etched it on this side with the larger component of the mirror polish steel, it had a bit of a hazy finish to some of the etched components. So he took it and he repolished it and he re-etched it, and he did it a couple of times until he got it just right. Jim is not going to send out something that is less than perfect. He is absolutely oriented towards the details. And I'll tell you the story of how I met him. I actually started conversing with him on Instagram a couple of years ago, particularly over the discussion about a Damascus blade and whether or not the two steels would harden to the same hardness and whether that would affect the detent as it traveled over the surface of the blade, whether the differentially hardened steels would create some sort of pattern or inconsistency in the detent as it traveled across the blade. Jim came up with the idea of electro welding a hardened insert piece of steel onto a Damascus blade, and it was just a curious discussion that he had, and it just showed me that he was very interested in the technical details of knife making, as you would expect from someone that is a CNC machinist by trade. And so we struck up a conversation, and then while I was at the Blade Show 2018, he came up to me and he said, "Hey, my name is Jim, check out these knives," and I immediately recognized them and we had a great chat. What I took away from that discussion is that he is very humble, that he is very interested in bettering his craft, and I handled two knives in 2018, and now this one from 2019 also was done around the time of the Blade Show, where I got to see Jim yet again and handle this knife at the show. I just want to say he's come a long way in just a year. Last year's knives were good. This knife is great. This is really, really perfectly done. And I think that it's important for people to understand that makers, especially new makers, need time to progress their skills, and their early work may not be representative of what they're currently producing. This knife is absolutely beautiful and perfect down to every detail, and the blade is only the beginning. The perfectly done etch on here is only the beginning of the perfection here. So as you've noticed, it is a pretty standard blade shape, fairly standard drop point style. It's really even a flat top, just a nice regular grind right here. I don't even know what to call this. Hollow ground all the way out to the tip right there. The distal taper is rather slow, so you still have a rather robust tip out there at the end. Here, the very small flats are accented by this very uniquely shaped opening hole, which I absolutely adore. My favorite opening or deployment mechanism is with the middle finger from the back, and I really like that a lot. This knife has a perfectly tuned detent for both the flip and the spidey flick, and so I really appreciate that very much. You can use your thumb to open the knife in a more traditional manner, just like that, if you so choose. However, I will tell you it's a lot of fun to fire this knife out with either of these two methods right here. What I do appreciate that he's done is that he's made a full-sized forward finger choil and sharpening choil so that you can get your finger all the way up onto the knife if you so choose, right up on the blade for some good control right there. Something that is interesting about the ergonomics of the blade has to do with this flat part of the handle right here. A lot of knives you're going to see a transition from sort of the choil straight onto the handle. I'll bring out the BBM maybe as an example of that. Let me see, that's maybe not the best example. I don't really have a good one to show you right now. Maybe the Spyderco's right here. The choil sort of extends onto the handle in this way, and then you have your secondary groove right here so that your fingers lock in, something like this. This one has a bit of a discontinuity in between these choils, but what it does allow you to do is have sort of an extended forward choil kind of area right here. You can really place your finger almost anywhere along this length for a lot of control right here. Another grip that I really enjoy is the over-the-top grip. I find myself using that a lot, whether it's just to cover the blade from the sheeple in the room, or it's just to have control of the tip of the blade. This is also a very nice hold for this, particularly because of these pivot collars. You actually get kind of a nice ergonomic sensation going on there as well. So, speaking of the pivot, we're going to go ahead and move back and talk about this. It's running on ceramic ball bearings with the ceramic detent. As you have seen, the action is very smooth and very fast. It is not a drop shut in the sense of a Grimsmo Norseman, but it has that perfectly tuned, exact amount of resistance all the way down. Very easy to just shake this shut. I'm gently shaking this. and under its own weight, it's falling closed. It's a rather light blade because so much has been hollow ground away, and so it doesn't fall like a heavy blade, but it does fall very easily. And once you get used to the resistance, you can just drop it down with a simple one flick motion, and it's very, very nice. A cool angle on this knife is this spine of the blade, that awesome Damascus with that wavy core pattern going on right there. Super beautiful. Here at the pivot, you can see the machining tolerances, how close all those pieces are. Something I really enjoy is this angle right here. I mentioned this on the Philippe Georget Hi-Fi video. When these things are all flush like this, it looks really great. Really, really nicely done right there. Everything matches up beautifully from the scales to the frame to the blade. That's really, really nice. You can see there is an internal stop pin as the blade rotates out. I believe that it's fixed onto the scales and the blade rotates around it. Lockup is solid, absolutely no play whatsoever. Here you can see the lockup is nice and early, very perfect. This is a titanium liner lock. There is a steel lock bar insert. Let me see if I can highlight that at all. It's actually hidden inside there. Very, very clever. So you're actually going to see that this is a little bit machined away right here. And then the insert is inserted in that way. Very, very nice. He is really, really focusing on the technical details of the longevity and the technical perfection of making a knife. We've been talking about the pivot, but I haven't mentioned these beautiful pivot collars. Let me go ahead and wipe off this beautiful Damascus pivot collar and large zirconium pivot screw. Yes, these are zirconium screws that have been heat blackened. There's actually this black Damascus on these pivot collars, excuse me, and so the zirc screw really looks great with the zirconium in that black Damascus. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Nice black Damascus back spacer as well over here, and pocket clip. Subtly done color pops. I really like that. What you see is a lot of patterns, but the colors themselves contrast quite nicely. The blade is gray and silver. Back here the handle has this black carbo quartz, but then there's just these bright pops of color on the clip and the pivot collars and the spacer. It's very subtle. I like that very much. These raised pivot collars are going to be favored by some and not favored by others. I like it. I think it provides a very unique look to this knife. As I mentioned before, it provides a nice tactile experience in holding the knife something like this, which is a common grip I have found in my actual use. Moving back to the handle, we've been talking about it briefly. Very nicely shaped, simple handle. Very, very standard grip here. You're going to get a nice standard grip, a nice hammer grip on this knife. I have a very large hand, size 8 sterile glove, extra large regular gloves, and so all 4 of my fingers fit into the traditional grip like this, and my thumb rests nicely on the jimping that is provided right here, and so I'm able to use the blade very well. It's a great, great ergonomic experience from here, but this, as I mentioned before, allows you to slide up or all the way up onto the choil, and then you have choices here, here, here. A lot of ergonomic options. I'm not going to say that I'm the biggest fan of this large flat area. Perhaps this could be redone and maybe more efficiently utilized in the future. That might be maybe my only complaint about the knife, if I'm going to call it a complaint. But I think that what it is made up for in this regard, where it looks beautiful just like this. What I really like also is the way that the hole matches up with the cutout on the handle. Everything matches up very nicely, very even lines everywhere. I see the design, it's really beautiful. The carbo quartz scales right here, this is some beautiful unidirectional carbon fiber carbo quartz, special material. Really nothing else in the world looks quite like this. I know a lot of other makers, a lot of other manufacturers make unidirectional carbon fiber, but carbo quartz does truly have a characteristic to it. Unlike all the others, the chatoyance is next level, and the consistency and evenness of their pattern is really unmatched. And on this application, it looks beautiful. It has a beautiful sort of spine running down the middle, and then it tapers all the way out there, and the waves of the layers just are shown beautifully. Interestingly enough, I think that Jim, as he was making this knife, realized that the off the machine finish was very perfect for this, and it didn't even require any more polishing. Very nice finish on there. As I mentioned before, it has a black Damascus pocket clip. This one is done with hidden hardware, very impressive. You can see the screws on the inside there. Beautifully done, functions very well. Nice amount of spring and a nice amount of ramp on there. It actually functions really well, unlike a lot of other custom black Damascus clips. That one actually works very well. And so what do I think about this knife? I actually really love it. There's a reason that I brought this on my channel, and it was to highlight this knife and to highlight Jim. Last year I met him, as I mentioned, and he was a truly humble guy, really interested in talking to me about my perspective on knives and seeing how he could improve the knives that he was making. And from last year to this year, he's made significant improvements, and I would say his work rivals anyone that was at the Blade Show. My good friend Russell said that this was in his top 5 favorite knives of the entire show, and we saw pretty much everything there was to see. Just because some makers have big names doesn't mean that they're making the best stuff always. Sometimes the little guy is hungry to make a perfect knife, and I believe that Jim really has achieved that level right here. This knife is perfectly machined, perfectly finished, perfectly conceptualized and executed. The finish work on the blade is second to none. The very unique styling is a language all his own, and I really think that his humility and character speaks volumes about the guy that he is. And sometimes, so often in this custom knife game, we are buying knives to support a guy or a girl that we like. And it's very easy to like Jim. He's a very likable guy and a lot of fun. You can see on his Instagram, he's got a family with 4 or 5 children. Just an incredibly nice guy. And this is his part-time hobby career. He works full-time as a machinist, and then he does this in his spare time. If you could even have spare time with that many kids, really and truly, this guy is someone that deserves your attention. He is an up-and-coming maker, and you may be able to talk to him about a build. And so talk to him, learn more about him at hmcknives.com or at hmc.knives on Instagram. Go ahead and follow me on Instagram as Dr. Frunky. Let me know what you think about the knife down below in the comments, the Transient here. Go ahead and click like and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more awesome videos on custom knives like this. And as always, guys, this is Dr. Frunky saying take care.